The Strain Season 2, Episode 11, Dead End. I really, really love this episode. I always love episodes that have a good flashback story, and this was definitely an amazing one. I mean, we got a ton of info on Eichorst, and it was a huge focus on him. It was like, I'd say it was like 80% of this episode was Eichhorst and Dutch. The other part, we got to see Gus and what, kind of where his storyline is headed, which was also pretty cool. But the stuff with Eichhorst was definitely amazing. We got to see pretty much just a ton of great stuff about him. We found out where his base is actually located. It's not just in this hotel, but it's in like the old section of the hotel, which was a great set piece for the last portion of this episode. I really loved this sort of, it was almost became a maze because it was just a normal hotel floor, which was just really big. You could actually go around a lot of different corners. It was like a full rectangle with just paths all over the place. But then things would be blocked off because the hotel was kind of split in half. And I love that. It was like, boom, here's a brick wall. It was almost like it was like an actual horror movie where just crazy out of nowhere type of stuff is happening. They're just brick walls, keeping Dutch locked in. And I love that. I thought it was a great set, for the end of this episode. Like, just a really crazy chase that fortunately did work out in the end, because it did seem like it was touch and go there for a lot of this episode. Like, I don't know. The guys were headed there. The whole episode, they're headed there. When they had pretty much like 3 scenes of them, like, all right, here's the hotel. It was like, where's the hotel? Here's the hotel. Them running up the stairs. And then, finding out about the brick wall and blowing it open. So, it was definitely an amazing episode, just seeing how this was playing out piece by piece. And then, from the very beginning, Dutch kind of hits a chord with Eichhorst, and then we get a backstory. We get a flashback of him before he was a Nazi, and it was actually really good. It was like just him, and it makes perfect sense. It was him as this guy who was very low on the totem pole, and then he's, later inspired by the Nazis, and he feels that they're right. And the woman that he's in love with, where we get this little love story, she's of course Jewish, and the way all of that played out, I thought was very interesting, because it started off, of course, once he was saying all this stuff, he kind of screwed up. Whether she was Jewish or not, I mean, they could have just said she was just not falling behind the Nazis, and it was obviously really, really early on, because it was before the war, and everything just was insane, and it was just very interesting to watch that stuff. It was like the Nazis as just this upstart faction of people that feel that, the Jews within Germany are, a problem within the country. And it was just very interesting. I actually really loved that aspect of this flashback. It was like a really interesting look at a very specific time that became something that, changed the course of the world. So I really enjoyed how they played around with that, and him, being at this low end of the totem pole. He's selling like radios to people and stuff, and then like when the guy loses his job, he like rips up the contract and just throws it at him. And, so he's not selling stuff, and he's basically like the guy who gets made fun of. He was kind of like the nerd out of the office. But there was the girl that he cared for, and she had feelings for him. And then all of that was ruined, and he decided, well, I don't have her anymore. I might as well follow, this route that kind of inspires me. And then we get the flashback, of course, and this, I don't think it could have happened any other way. It's, with it being this type of show, with it being honestly any show, I think it always comes down to that moment where you messed up with this person, and now you're in a position of power that ultimately in this case was fatal. Like, and it could have been deadly, it could have been okay. And who knows if he said the wrong thing. I mean, she mentioned being deported, and the first thing I thought was that would actually be like the best thing that could have ever happened to her family at that point in time, because it was way before the war. They would have been deported, but like they didn't have all of the deadly things that they had, later on during the wars, or during the war. So it was just interesting seeing that moment, like, that in that time frame is like being deported was like the worst thing. And he probably made it worse by saying that, oh, we worked together, but then she was a thief. And so he's going through, it's like, oh, now he feels great. He's, with the SS, and he's feeling powerful. Of course, he runs into his old boss. And it's like, I feel good, like I'm in power. And then he comes across this woman that he still cared for, but he, of course, in this new position, felt he had to show, you know, that he was 100%, with the SS, and he didn't care in any way, shape, or form. It's just, oh, I knew her, but that was really it. And she's killed along with who I have to assume were her parents, and they're just there in the city, and it wasn't. It was just out in the open. Like, people, were walking past. Like, they had a little scene where they actually show the three of them hanging. They're just people walking past. It's like, holy crap. And that's probably, now that I think about it, that's probably where his boss actually came from, because they were going in opposite directions. And he probably came from that, and he saw what happened, and it's like, oh, you may have had something to do with this because she was Jewish, and, maybe you went on a date. Maybe, that could have been talked about or whatever. But it was just an interesting moment, and he's just there, and that was like his first moment of, his only moment probably of having like any sort of emotion during that time when he was with the SS, and it's like, oh, my companion or boss or whoever, however the ranks were, he sees me, and so I have to really play this off, and he flicks the cigarette, and he's like destroyed when he turns around. Like, I still cared for this woman, but I wanted to have my position of power, and now she's dead, along with her parents. And it was just a great moment to see, like, him, excuse me, being really brought down by that. It was very interesting to watch, because it was a guy who isn't the Eichorst that we know, who's pretty much emotionless. Like, he was still an emotional character. He was still, honestly, he was actually just still human. And it was just an interesting moment. It was like, that was his real first, step into where he is now, like, into all the madness of being in the SS, and then eventually, learning about the Master and joining the Master and becoming a Strigoi, all of that stuff. So, I really loved the flashback. It was definitely the highlight of the episode, and it was really, I think it was really the main focus. There may overall have been more scenes set in the present time, because we did have the stuff with Gus, and we also had the stuff with Satrakian as well. But that was clearly like the big focus was Eichorst and his past, and how he truly started down this path towards being a Strigoi, and how he started off just as a human who was really just like recruited into becoming a Nazi. He felt that that was the right thing to do, and then he had like his first taste of actually causing someone he cared about, to die. So I love the flashback. The current present timeline stuff was also interesting, with Dutch just being trapped, and then they have the stuff with the cop in the beginning, and he's just like, oh, I brought you a friend, and he just kills that guy and snaps his neck. Fortunately, that does allow for Dutch to escape, which happened right after a very crazy scene with Eichhorst telling her to like take her pants off and stuff, and it was just like, that was just an insane moment. Like, I think that was one of the craziest things they've ever done in this show. I was like, this is not what I was expecting at all. And basically, he was trying to like perform oral on her. That's pretty much what was in his head, and that was insane to me. Like, holy crap, this is what he wants to do. Like, he wants to take this woman and do something that he hasn't been able to do for decades. And it was just insane. Like, it was really crazy. And fortunately, she got out of that. She sprays him. I don't know if that'll come into play, but pepper spray affecting him that much was actually fairly interesting. It was about as much as a human. It just affected him, so he couldn't really do anything. But she escapes, and she's, like I said, the maze sort of setup that they had was definitely amazing. I love that entire scene with her running around, and then it's like just brick walls and stuff. It just looked really cool, and it was just really crazy to watch, because it's this, it's a half of a hotel, and she's running around, and then it's like, boom, here's a brick wall right in the middle of the hallway, or at the end of the hallway, or at this door. Of course, there's no power to the elevator. Goes, halfway down the stairs, boom, that's down too. So just lots of craziness. It was really fun to watch. Really glad she got saved because, like I said, they made it seem like it was pretty close. But great that she got saved at the end, and they, got a little. They wounded him a little bit. Eichorst got hit with a grenade. He was like his face was smoking a little bit when he was walking down the train tracks. Um, I'm wondering what they're gonna do with that. If they'll be able to gather information, if they'll stay there for a little bit and we get to see that, or if they'll kind of skip over it. But I'd love if in the next episode we got to see them in his room. Like if I doubt he'll have like any notes or anything that could really give them something, but they could literally make up anything they wanted to, or whatever's in the comic books, they could take into the show. But I would love to see that if they actually explored it, because we got to see the most that we've ever seen of this thing with, the White Room, and then, like the little setup and stuff, which we get like glimpses of here and there throughout some episodes. But it was really cool. I really loved that. It was definitely, like I said, aside from the flashback, ending was my favorite portion. It was very amazing. We have the stuff with Satrakian, which was actually very minor in this episode. He was basically like, hey, you're the kid. I'm the guy that saved you when you were a kid. Give me the book because you owe me, which I thought was funny. It was like, give me the book. Like, I saved your life. You pay me back. Simple. And then the guy's like, but there are people that would pay money. And he just leaves him there. So Satrakian really had nothing this whole episode. He was tied up. His argument about, the guy paying him back didn't work. And then basically he got out of the chair, and that was the last thing he had. So he had nothing, but it was an important focus. We have the Lumen, which by the end of this episode is delivered back to another sort of middleman. And who knows how that's going to play out. Like, it's still between Satrakian and Palmer. It's like we have the actual owner of the book, and now we're, like I said, right back to the middleman, which may go straight to Satrakian, because I don't think that Palmer was actually talking to that guy. I can't think of his actual name, but I don't think Palmer was talking with him. I think that was only Satrakian. So this guy doesn't know about Palmer at this point, at least, where it's like, oh, there's a buttload of money, but that could easily change because the other guy knows. He knows about Palmer, and he knows the level of money that would be coming in. So that could easily change in the next episode, but it's back to someone who, at this point, like I said, doesn't know about Palmer. So fortunately, slightly leaning towards Satrakian just a tiny bit. So I'm excited for that. A random thing that I noted, which will only affect people that ever watch the show Defiance, the guy who is at the taxi, who was talking to him when the taxi first pulled up, that guy played a character in the show Defiance, and I was like, hey, there's Tommy. So that was something I noticed. If you watch Defiance, or if not, it doesn't matter. But I like that show a lot, so I was like, hey, there's this character that used to be in the show. The stuff with Gus, I thought that was pretty cool. I'm really excited for the next episode because of the preview. It seems like it really, really focused more than anything. It was on Gus and Silver Angel, working with a guy, I totally forgot his name, The Born, because I forgot his real name. They're going to be working with him. Apparently they're going to be recruiting some other people as well, and they even have a full-on conversation like, why should we follow him? So other people have already been recruited, or they're going to get recruited and kind of be brought up to speed even within the next episode. So I'm very curious about that. We're going to get a new team of people fighting against this Strigoi. We're going to have the Born teaching them. I wish I could remember his name because I remember it being kind of cool. But he's going to be teaching them. Gus and Silver Angel, they get the family outside. So, they're off. They're safe. Now we have these two guys kind of working together. And I love that scene where, he gets out of the car and he hugs the dad. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I promised I'd see them to safety. And then Gus is just like, all right, it's like, that was a good one. And he just passed on the back like, all right, let's go. I kind of just like that scene. They didn't argue. It was like, he did do what he said, and he wants to help me fight. So that's all there is to it. Let's go. So I just, for some reason, I love that scene. There wasn't a back and forth. He just understood. Like, he did keep his promise. He does want to help me fight. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm really excited to see that come back because it was a minor moment from the last season, as well as this season so far, because the team was introduced last season, and they unfortunately all got killed off in this one. So we have a whole new team, mostly human team. So that should be very interesting. And I'm pretty sure one of them already gets killed off. Like they had a scene, I think it was like the last clip of the preview. A guy was like smiling for a second, and then he got hit in the neck. So there's already somebody gone on the team. So they have to learn, and they have to work together and get stronger. But this was a great, it was a minor portion, but probably my favorite introductory sort of moment of the episode. Like, this is going to lead to my favorite moment. The Lumen is probably the most important moment that's going to, kind of be led to for the next couple episodes. But the one I'm looking most forward to is definitely the stuff with Gus and the Silver Angel and them working with the Born and training other people. And we only have 2 episodes left this season, which I was not expecting. So they're doing something crazy. So they're going to be packing a lot of great content into these next 2 episodes. And I can't freaking wait to see them. I love this one. Very intense. Very, very great story-based flashback. The sort of side stories, the tracking stuff, is just like, here's what's happening with the Lumen. Very minor. Just here's where it is by the end. So that's obviously important next time. And then the stuff with Gus was really good. And once again, minor stuff, but important next time. So all great across the board for this episode. I really loved it. Loved the main story, which was, of course, just about Eichorst then and now. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I definitely want to know what you guys thought about Eichhorst's backstory in this episode. Like, what did you think about him as a human, just working a day-to-day job, a door-to-door job even, which much more respectable, I think, back in those days. Not so much at this point, but he was doing a day-to-day, door-to-door type job, selling radios as the new big thing. And he was just a normal guy who, unfortunately, sided with the Nazis, which is just always bad. But he was, at that point, just a normal guy, kind of living his life with his own ideals. And it just was the beginning of all the madness he would deal with, which obviously you guys know I loved. But I want to know what you thought about it, so please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.